Good morning. It is good to be together this morning. Good to see you. If you're here to honor your mother, I know she is in fact honored to have your presence, and we appreciate you being here with us. We're going to end up in Matthew chapter 12. If you want to be turning your Bibles there to our Bible reading that was read by Roger a moment ago, that's where we'll end up this morning in our attempt to honor our mothers and to honor our God all in the same. Truly godly mothers are a great blessing. And I want to take this opportunity to say, as Denny already has, to all of you mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. There is, in my mind, very few things that are more important than having a godly mother, one that I am blessed with and one that my children are blessed with. And I ask you this morning to keep my mother in your prayers, as many of you have experienced what she's experiencing this morning, the first Mother's Day without her mother. And it's a rough day, and you've been there, many of you, and myself, but I hope it's many, many years from now, if it's the Lord's will. There was a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. They wanted to get their mother a flower for Mother's Day. So they go down to the flower shop and they pick out a flower and they get it for their mother and bring home and give to her. The mother is all ecstatic and very thankful, and finally the 6-year-old says, "Well, Mom, you know there was another flower down there we really wanted to get you, but it was too expensive." Said, "Yeah." Said, "We knew it would be perfect for you because it had this. Could I get just a little piece so I could rest?" We just knew that'd be a perfect flower for you. Mothers surely are special, aren't they? When you think about the mother of Jesus, you know, the Bible tells us very, very little about the mother of Jesus. And I really think that that's by God's design, as if everything else isn't already. But I really think that God wanted us to have just a glimpse of who the mother of His Son would be. But yet, He didn't want to just promote her entirely or to make her out to be something greater than the Lord Himself. And so I think that all of Scripture that we have is by design. And when you think about the Scriptures that relate to Mary, what do we know about Mary? Well, just a snapshot, if you will. If you go back into the Old Testament, into Psalm 132 and verse 11, I think the psalmist gives us a prophecy here of the fact that Mary would come from the tribe of Judah. In Psalm 132 and verse 11, the Lord swore to David a sure oath that one of his sons, that is, one of the sons of his body, would sit on the throne. And so, in other words, David, one of your descendants. David being, in fact, from the tribe of Judah, and therefore coming from the tribe of David, there would be one who would sit on the throne after David. Of course, we know that the only parent that had anything to do with Jesus, as far as physically, was His mother. His father had nothing to do with His birth and His conception, that is physically. It was all done by the Holy Spirit. And so ultimately, Jesus only came from the tribe of His mother, if you will. But in fact, if you look at the lineage, Joseph was from the tribe of Judah as well. And so both of his parents being from the tribe of Judah, having been prophesied or having been foretold all the way back to the days of Genesis in Genesis 49 and verse 10. That it would be the tribe of Judah that would bring forth the Messiah into the world. So we know that Mary was from the tribe of Judah. We also know that Mary was only betrothed or engaged to Joseph. That they were not, in fact, according to our customs or according to the customs of the Jewish day, they were not married yet. And so to be with child was very disgraceful. To be with child would bring about shame and reproach upon this young female who was in fact a virgin. Matthew chapter 1 and verse 18 tells us that they were only betrothed to one another, and they had not come together. And for you adults in the room, they had not yet come together. And of course, that was to fulfill all prophecy, right? As Isaiah had prophesied in Isaiah 7 and verse 14, that a virgin would give birth. And so that would be something unnatural or supernatural or only divine in its opportunity. And so a lady who had never been with a man. And in fact, we learn of Mary that she had never been with a man. She had not yet been with who was going to be her husband by the name of Joseph, but yet she was with child. And of course, Matthew 1 and verse 18 tells us how, in fact, she conceived this child of the Holy Spirit. In Matthew chapter 2, we just kind of learn a little snapshot here and there about Mary, that Joseph was told to take the child and his mother to Egypt. And he, in fact, done that. As they fled from Herod there, and after Herod was dead and the angel had warned or instructed Joseph, he brought Mary and the child back into Nazareth, where they settled. And so we learn from the birth, if you will, in Bethlehem. Here was a young virgin lady by the name of Mary, who would travel from Bethlehem following the birth of Jesus to escape the death of the little babies that Herod had proclaimed. And they would go to Egypt for a period of years, and then ultimately they would travel back and they would settle in the city of Nazareth. Really, that's about all we know about Mary. We know who her tribe was. We know who her husband was. We know a little bit about the engagement. We know about the kinship with Elizabeth and the mother of John the Baptist there, and their visit, and that's about all we know as they traveled and ultimately settled with the young boy Jesus in Nazareth. As you look throughout the Scriptures, if you just wanted a snapshot of where Mary appears, well, there they are. And there's not many of them. You go from the prophecies, which obviously are about Mary, as I mentioned in Isaiah 7 and verse 14, to that being fulfilled, Luke chapter 2 and verse 35, Matthew chapter 1 and verse 18. There was a woman who was a virgin going to give birth. As you read Matthew chapter 1 and Luke chapter 1, you have in fact the birth scene, and of course child who is the Son of God. And there's a humble beginning to where she lays this child and to where the visitors come to visit. And all of this begins with this very humble young lady who at first, according to Matthew chapter 1, almost rejects the Lord, but then, having been explained, she accepts graciously. As you move through, you find Mary in John chapter 2 at the first miracle. You remember when Jesus changed the water into wine, and as He begins His public ministry, He has his. There's just little snapshots here of Mary. There's no lengthy discourse. There's no lengthy explanation. There's no lengthy understanding. And thus I say all this to admit to you that it kind of confuses me while there are religious people in the world today who worship Mary. When in fact the Bible is very limited about Mary and who Jesus' mother was. As you go over into Matthew's account, you find her in Nazareth with Jesus as He's going about. I really don't know how much Mary was with Jesus, but there is a few references along the way that tells us His mother was with Him. Maybe she was with Him all the time, and the text just doesn't tell us that. But I do find it ironic or interesting that on these occasions it points that out. Of course, at the cross, when Jesus looks down, and John records there in John 19, he's talking to John, his half-brother, and he's watching him die in agony. After all, where would any other godly mother be if their son was going through this devastating trial and death? There she was, according to John 19, at the foot of the cross. I can't say this for certain, but I believe it. In Matthew 28 and verse 1, Matthew records that early at the dawn of the morning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. I find it interesting that Matthew just records her as the other Mary, but I believe, if you'll research that a little bit, obviously there was a lot of people named Mary at this time. There was a bunch of Marys, and I would believe that you would find most people to hold that to be the mother of Jesus. That in fact, at the tomb on that morning with Mary Magdalene, the other Mary, Matthew 28 and verse 1, being his mother, goes to the tomb early in the morning, having left him dead on the cross a few days earlier. And then finally, the last time to my knowledge that we find Mary in the text is in Acts chapter 1. In Acts chapter 1, you recall that in verse 11 of Acts chapter 1, Jesus disappears into the clouds and makes that final ascension. It's in Acts chapter 1 and verse 11 that we are told that He will come again in the same manner that they had just seen Him go. It's in Acts chapter 14, Acts chapter 1 and verse 14, that they are gathered in the upper room. Why are they gathered? Because of fear of the Jews. In other words, the apostles, be there 11 of them at this point because Judas is gone, right? And they're about to replace Judas with Matthias. But the text tells us in Acts chapter 1 and verse 14 that in the upper room, gathered with the apostles, is Mary, the mother of Jesus. It's kind of an interesting place for her to be, in my opinion. But there she is, having watched her son die, having gone to the tomb, I'm convinced, and seen the empty tomb, and now here she is, as they're about to select the 12th apostle, and as about to get up and preach on the day of Pentecost and establish the church. Peter is, through the divine inspiration and direction of God. And there's Mary. Mary, the mother of Jesus, gathered with them. And essentially, there it is. The snapshot of Mary's appearances in all of Scripture. Now back you up to Matthew chapter 2 to point out something very interesting to me. As I was reading the text this past week, I want you to notice something here. Matthew chapter 2, beginning in verse 11. God is instructing Joseph in Matthew chapter 2 to help and carry the child and his mother. But as the visitors arrive, when they get there, I want you to notice who they see. According to Matthew chapter 2 and verse 11, they see the child and his mother. Did they believe that in fact a virgin had given birth? I think they did. Did they know her name was Mary? I have not a clue at this point. But what they knew is that God had sent His Son to be born of woman in the town of, according to Micah chapter 5 and verse 2, in the town of Bethlehem. And as they come to visit, they're not looking for Mary. They're looking for Jesus. Is Mary important? Of course she is. One of the hardest things about being away on days like today is that I don't miss my mother very often on Sundays. But I do kind of miss being with her today. But as they go looking, they're not looking for His mother, they're looking for Him. As we come today to honor our mothers, what do we really come looking for? Are we just here to honor Mom? Or did you come this morning looking for the baby? Did you come this morning looking for the Savior? Did you come this morning to find the child? You see, in Matthew chapter 2, as you drop down to verse 13, if I were to say to you that I'm going to take my family somewhere, you know how I would probably say it? I would probably say I'm going to take Chastity and the kids. What do you think? That'd be pretty normal, wouldn't it? For most husbands who care about their wives, they don't really say, you know, I'm going to take my kids. And yeah, I'm going to let their mama go with us. That's just really not respectful or polite in any way, right? So we say, hey, yeah, Chastity and the kids and I are going somewhere, right? We're going to take Mama and the kids. But who did the angel tell Joseph to take? Take the kid with Mama. Now, he didn't say leave Mama behind. Don't misunderstand me. But be advised that I think there is some significance to the order of the instruction here. Joseph, you take the child and his mother. Because who is most significant here? And it's not the mama. As important as mothers are, the most significant one here is the child. And the text tells us in verse 14, and Joseph says it just like he's been instructed. Joseph responds just as he's been directed, and he took the child and his mother. And then down in verse 20, after Herod's dead and after Joseph has been visited by the angel again, and after he's been told it's safe to come back, he's told the same way. You take the child and his mother and go back. And the text says in Matthew 2 and verse 21, you read it for yourself, that Joseph took the child and his mother. I think there's some significance there in the order in which they were listed. Because what I think God is trying to say to us is that in all of our efforts in life, we must decrease so that He might increase. And here, very early in the life of Jesus on this earth, we are watching the significance and importance, the prestige, the authority, the hierarchy, if you will, of God saying, that's exactly right. I brought him into the world through a very special woman. I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt that God very carefully chose Mary. He didn't want just any other lady to be the mother of His Son. I have no doubt in my mind that she was very righteous, that she was very concerned about the things of God, that she was very faithful and obedient by her actions, by her response, by her joy, and all of the emotions that went with this childbearing. And of course, the text bears out, and the Bible tells us that obviously her and Joseph go on and marry, and they go on and have other children together. And so Jesus has some half-brothers and some half-sisters. And so they have a family together. And no doubt Jesus is the oldest of these children growing up, and they have a family together. And that little bitty snapshot that Luke gives us of him traveling at the age of 12. I don't know how much younger the other siblings were, but he grew up in a family. And he became an adult with a mother and a father and a family. And I'm convinced God carefully chose that family. But yet, very early, even in the instructions of Matthew chapter 2, Jesus is saying, God is saying to Joseph through the angel, Jesus is the priority. You don't be disrespectful to your wife. No, 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 no. You don't dishonor your wife. No, 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 no. But what you need to realize is that that son, my son, is to have the preeminence in all things. As that son gets older, and as he is out and about in his public ministry, I call your attention to the 12th chapter of Matthew, in the very end of the chapter. And the reading that was read a few moments ago, and if you've been with us for several Sundays, you know what's going on in Matthew chapter 12. Because we studied from several different contexts in this chapter. Jesus is in this long discourse of teaching. He's talking about life, and He's talking about how to live, and He's talking about what's most important, and He's talking about how to conduct yourself, and He's performing miracles. And they're asking for more miracles, and they're asking for more confirmation, and they're asking for more solidification. And He's instructing them, hey, you got everything you need. You've got the prophecies, and you've got the signs, and you've got the Old Testament, and read your prophets. And He's in this crowd of people, according to verse 46. And Matthew chapter 12 ends with a very interesting interaction between He and His family. And I want to leave you with this idea in mind this morning. And I want you to see where Jesus is and what He's teaching. And as essential and as important and as vital as physical family is, I want you to see where the real priority is here. As they come to Him, He's in a crowd of folks. I've got Him in a small room, and I've got it standing room only. And I've got in my mind that Jesus is somewhere in the center, and maybe He's surrounded on all sides, and the door is out yonder somewhere. Maybe there's multiple doors. Maybe He's in an open air kind of thing, just a roof over Him here. And so maybe it's all kind of exposed. But there's people gathered around, the crowd is. And He's speaking to them, and somewhere on the outskirts of this crowd, Mary shows up. And interestingly enough, did you notice from the Bible reading that the crowd recognizes Mary? I think that's kind of significant. Is she not just another lady? Obviously, she's aged a little now. She's obviously had some other children because He's got brothers, at least we know of 2, 3 that He had. So they're with Him, or with her rather. And they're outside wanting to talk to Him. Well, that only makes sense, right? I don't know what they wanted. I don't know what they needed, but I got to be honest with you. If my mama calls my cell phone, I tend to answer. Very few things that I will be doing that when my mama calls, I say, sorry, I can't answer right now. When she calls, I kind of want to talk. So here comes his mama, and she wants to talk to him. And he's in this crowd of people, and he's teaching. And she sends in a messenger. I don't know. Some speculate that maybe Joseph's dead by this point. If in fact Joseph is dead, then here's his whole family. And they've come to him, and they send in a messenger to him, verse 48. And Jesus gives this reply. Who art Who is my mother? And who are my brothers? But do you really think? Do you really think that Jesus had forgotten who gave birth to Him? Surely not, right? You don't think that He'd forgotten those younger siblings that He had, that they had grown up together to some degree. Surely He hadn't forgotten who they are, has He? Absolutely not. He knows exactly who His mother is. He knows exactly who His brother is. After all, when He's hanging on the cross, He either has some divine recollection or He never forgot who they were, because when He looked down, He saw His mama and He knew who His mama was. He knows exactly who they are. But what's the point? He makes the point in verse 49 when He stretches out His hands toward His disciples and He says, Here are my mother and my brothers. Can you just see the disciples standing there scratching their heads going, no, they're out there. Wait a minute. Don't you think that Jesus' mama expected Him to stop on a dime and come talk to her? You mamas out there, ain't that what you expect us kids to do? What could be more important than talking to mama? She needs to talk. You need to stop everything you're doing and go talk to mama. And He doesn't. Not only that, but now He's confused these disciples and say, Here are my mother and my brothers. And finally in verse 50, He makes the explanation clear. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven, that one is my brother, my sister, and mother. Is Jesus saying, I don't care about my mother? Absolutely not. Is He saying, I don't care about my brothers? Absolutely not. The text makes very clear in other places that Jesus understood the commandment to honor your father and mother, and I'm convinced that if He was going to live without sin, He had to obey His parents in the Lord, or else He would have been sinful. He had to honor His parents and respect His parents and be obedient to His parents, or else He would not have been sinless. He's not being disrespectful at all. No, He's saying to them, listen, you want to know where the real emphasis lies? It lies in the spiritual family. You want to be my brother? You want to be my sister? Gender doesn't matter. You can be a member of the kingdom of God, male or female alike. Jesus said, yeah, okay, fair enough. There's my physical family. But let me tell you something that's more important than my physical family. It's my spiritual family. And the spiritual family overrides the value and importance of the physical family. And so on a day like today, I could say nothing less than Happy Mother's Day. I mean, wow. What this world owes to godly mothers is immeasurable. What the kingdom of God owes to godly mothers is immeasurable. But as soon as I would say that, maybe I wouldn't. Maybe that slide didn't make it. I would ask you this question. Are you a member of God's family? Are you a member of the family of God? Jesus says, you want to be my brother? You want to be my brother? You can be my brother. You want to be my sister? You can be my sister. You want to be a part of my family? The real question this morning is, are you a member of God's family? In Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 10, for it was fitting that He for whom and by whom all things exist, in bringing many sons to glory, should be made the founder of salvation through suffering. Hebrews 2 and verse 11, for He sanctifies those who are sanctified and have all one origin. That is why He is not ashamed to call them brethren. Jesus wants to call you His family member. Won't you let Him? How? Well, He says in Matthew 12 and verse 50, He who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. In Matthew 7 and verse 24, He said, there was a wise man who heard the word and did them. He who does the will. Am I doing the will of the Father? Are you a member of God's family? If not, we want to offer you Jesus' invitation to be a member of His family. Would you come as we stand and sing?